Interface Video presents Fairfield Today. Brought to you by Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, Fairhope Hospice and Palliative Care, the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities, and the Frankie Smith Funeral Home.
Hello friends, and welcome to Fairfield Today, and we're glad you're joining us. Merry Christmas from all of us, from Interface Video and everybody that's involved in Fairfield Today. As you join us in this Christmas season, we're rapidly approaching the big day, and lots of things going on this time of the year. Second half of the show today is going to be an exciting time. We're going to be talking to the executive director of the Decorative Arts Center and a gentleman from Logan who is a curator of one of the events they have going on right now at this Christmas time with Christmas trees. Perhaps you read recently in the Lancaster Eagle Gazette about that. We'll have those gentlemen on the second half of the show. Our first half of the show is we always like to have local authors on whenever we can, and it's been 5 years since this book came up. This was book one. If you can see down in the corner, it's very small. It just says book one, Echoes from the Hill. Well, that almost says there's going to be a book two, and I'm not sure he was ready for that, but Bill Venrick is with us, and book two came up, Bill, and we're here to talk about that. So an exciting time. Merry Christmas to you.
Same to you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. So 5 years ago, we do Echoes from the Hill. And let me put that out there a little bit. This is the history of what became the Fairfield School for Boys, and now it's a prison. But back when I was a young person, it was the B.I.S, Boys Industrial School. Everyone knows where it is out there, and everybody's been through it more than once, and I hope nobody's been in there. We don't want any of that. But it was a remarkable place to have in this community all those many years. And your book one, Echoes from the Hill, was a remarkable compendium of just the history of that and the kids and the things that went on. That I'm sure that became a labor of love for you, and then your wife was helping you too.
Exactly that way, yeah.
How long did you spend on book one? How long?
I think about 7 years.
7 years,
yeah,
to get book one. And so, and again, well, let's get into it. Where can people purchase this book if they want to get that?
Well, they can, right here at Fairfield Federal, they have the book.
Yeah.
And also, the Heritage, they have the book.
Sure.
And the Frame Shop with Cindy Smith, and then Janet Moreau, she's also helping me push the book too.
Okay, and it's a wonderful book. If you're looking for a pretty cool gift to give to someone just about that and enjoys history and wants to learn about the Lancaster community in general, there's a lot of great information in here. So 5 years ago, you finished book one. It takes you 7 years to do that one. Now fast forward today, and it's been time enough to get a second book in. When you made this book, in the back of your mind, did you think, gosh, I've got more information that I can use, maybe somewhere along the line I'll have to do a follow-up?
I think that perhaps was there, but I wasn't totally aware of it. And when I put book one, they said, when's the next one? Well, then I started. And there was a lot of, I don't want to say a residue, but ravelings and stuff in the works. And so it was a little bit easier to put together. And but this time I want to emphasize the employees and also the children of the employees.
So there isn't a time frame where book one ends and then book two picks up. This is all the information that just in the history of the B.I.S. that you couldn't get in book one.
Right, there's 122 years that the B.I.S. was around.
When it was the B.I.S.?
122 years. Well, but
Fairfield
FSC
School,
also.
Yeah, okay. And it has I can just remember, as a young person here, we lived on Hubert Avenue, which wasn't that far from there. And back then, Mom would have the radio on or something while she was in the kitchen, and all the time you'd hear stories. Well, just be on the lookout. A B.I.S. boy has walked away. I don't even know if they used the word escape. Perhaps they did. But these were, of course, nonviolent people. And there wasn't a fence out there. Some of them just wandered away. And I don't remember there were, but I won't remember of any horrific situations of those boys wandering away. But we would always be on the lookout because we live fairly close to there. But gosh, I have, as a young person, just great memories out there, and that was really a whole world into itself out there. They were very self-sufficient.
They were a small city.
Yes.
The only thing that came in was medicine and coal.
Is that
They
right?
produced everything else.
Is that right?
Yeah.
They did everything. I can remember as I got older and then got into high school and out of high school, I played on some softball teams, and we would go out there and play their teams because they had lots of teams out there. They had a lot of kids. They had a kind of a closed system there where they could get people, but they grew their own food. They raised animals. They just did everything.
They canned a lot of food for the Ohio State services. They also had a big greenhouse, and they had flowers on that were provided to the state people, and out there they had flowers on the table, this kind of stuff.
Well, and refresh me on book one. Was there anything in there about why they decided to put that here in Fairfield County?
That was so long ago, I don't know. It's just one of those things. They had a German man named Remlin. He was appointed by one of the governors to start the thing, and he traveled all over Europe to find a model or makeup, something that they follow, and they finally found one. And the funny thing is, the model they chose was out of business 38 years later, and the B.I.S. was 122 years.
Still going on.
Well,
in another form. It's still going on in another form. And so you think about that, and so your book two, we'll hold up book two here. It looks very similar, just a little different cover, red versus blue. But so this one has more of a feel of the employees and their families who were involved out there, because really families were involved as caretakers.
It was a family unit. They were together. They just couldn't have asked for a bigger family, and the boys could see that, and that was a helpful thing for them too.
Now, in this one, are there any? I know in this one you talked with a lot of the people who had a connection with that back then. Did you talk some more of them, or did you continue those talks in book two?
Yes, I did. We have, in fact, among the children of the employees, there was a Patty Hayes, and her dad had been a superintendent out there, and we had about at least 20 pages of her story.
Really?
And she told the whole story growing up there. I think she went there when she was 8 years old, and of course, when she graduated from high school, she made a paper out of her stay there, and we have that paper in there.
Is that right? Does she live locally around here, or?
No, she's in Florida.
In Florida.
She's in her 80s now, just like me. I'm at 87. So.
Yeah, very good.
She's a year older than I am.
Well, it's just such a great thing. And again, I'd certainly suggest that if you are looking for a very cool gift, maybe you hadn't bought book one, or even if you had, book two is a good addition to the bookshelf. There are lots of pictures in here, and I know people came to you by the droves, and just people came out of the woodwork once they found out you were doing book one, and say, I've got pictures here, or I've got a story.
Exactly.
I mean, a lot of things that you never even thought about.
I had one experience at Heritage, at a showing we had for the B.I.S. Some woman gave me a little picture about like that, and she said, can you use this? And I didn't know it was like a snapshot. And later on, that same woman gave me hordes of pictures that she had of a relation, and not hordes, but a bunch of pictures.
Yes.
And they're in the book too.
Yeah.
Book two also.
Is there any, and I'm just dropping this on you here quickly, is there anything in your mind, one story that sticks out to you that was really something that kind of caught your ear and say, wow, what a great thing?
We had one particular story came to me through a preacher friend of mine in Indianapolis, Indiana. They had a youth minister there whose dad had been in the B.I.S.
And he runs that in Indianapolis,
and
or in Indiana.
No, he didn't, but his son did.
Okay.
His son. And what they did, this man became, he was sent to the B.I.S. by his mother for being incorrigible. She had 3 children by 3 different men, and they did not know who their father was. And he ended up going to the B.I.S. and he became a basketball star from B.I.S. And then he went on to study in school himself, and he taught school for 30 years.
Is that right?
He taught school for 30 years.
After being an incorrigible youth.
Yeah, supposedly.
Well, and again, the stories like that, I'm sure there are many more of them. You think about these were really low-level offending young men that went out there.
Yeah, that's right. They might steal cars, and the hot wire car work, and several of the teachers say, "I can't find my keys. I locked my keys in the car," and he was the kid goes out in 10 minutes, 5 he was in the car.
Yeah, that's it. Now, were these young people here? Were they from the entire state of Ohio? Was this the only place like this in the state?
Yes, there were 88 counties that fed. The courts fed them into the school out there.
So people from Cleveland, from Cincinnati, from Toledo, all over the state came to this little burg.
That's where Bob Hope came from, was Cleveland.
No, that would be, of course, the next question. There was always that story, and nobody ever knew anything about it till you took the time to put it together. But we always had heard that story, that the great Bob Hope, who was an Ohio boy, not a checkered past, but had a moment as a young person, and he spent some time here.
Yes, he did. He came from I think you'd say, a dysfunctional home. His dad was a stonemason, and work wasn't too great for that, and they were having some money problem for years. And he has 5 brothers, and I don't know how the other boys came out, but he came out great. And he helped different charities, and he was on the war fronts and stuff like that.
USO tours.
All that. So that's what that all was.
I know there's a sign here, Bill, and we've only got a couple minutes left. We'll hold these up, and I know Shane will get shots of them. One with your wife as a young girl when she was just a young person in front of it, and it's Pioneer Girl, 1932 to 1951, and then A Place to Call Home. Bill and Jean Venrick did that, so you've got actually 4 books out talking about
this. Was the first one we did.
Place to Call Home was the first one.
Children's Home.
Yeah.
And we had an experience. A lady who had been 88 years old, and she was there when she was 6 years old, and that store's in there. And she came to visit us recently, and we got to see her, and I wrote an article about that too.
How nice is that?
Yeah,
nice.
It was great.
So I know you and your wife, this was a labor of love for you. You had a great time putting all this together.
I have something here that might be of interest.
What do we have here?
That's one garter, and I have a pair of them, and the boy said they were given to him at the B.I.S. to wear, and he still had them until he gave them to us.
Is that right? A nice little souvenir
1972.
1972. So tell us again where your books can be purchased.
The books can be purchased at the Fairfield Federal, the main office, and the West Fair, and the Heritage down the street, and also Cindy's Frame Shop, and Janet Mall. If you go to Janet's place, she has a book for you too.
Well, Bill Venrick has been our guest, and it's always a joy to have Bill on. Again, an author of 4 books, anywhere from the children's home to a book about his wife in her early years around here. And then, but of course, the 2 big ones are the ones we're talking about. Echoes from the Hill, Part 1, and now Part 2 are out. It's an exciting time. Congratulations on all the work you've put on this. I know it's been a labor of love.
My wife actually wrote that book, and it was like an autobiography. We did a few publishings, then we ordered a bunch because people are very much interested in her life.
Well, the community is better off for the work you've done around here. Well, they are. Otherwise, this information would have been gone. Nobody ever would have had it.
That's
so,
right.
Bill, Merry Christmas to you. Happy New Year. We hope you have a good one. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you.
Back a lot of years with the Stan Robinson days back there. So, a good guy, Bill Venrick, who Echoes from the Past, Part 1 and Part 2. And again, come to any of the places that he mentioned and see the book. And we'll be back to talk about the Decorative Art Center in just a moment.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our 2 locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Welcome back to Fairfield Today. I want to thank Bill Venrick for being here to talk about his great books about Echoes from the Hill on the B.I.S. I want to say Fairfield School for Boys. We remember it, and the things he wrote about were the old B.I.S. boys and the things that went on down there. These are great books, great holiday stocking stuffers to have. They're just a compendium of great information. It's an exciting time of the year, as we talked about. There are so many events going on around Lancaster and Fairfield County, and one place that we love to talk about with all the great heritage here in Lancaster and Fairfield County is the Decorative Arts Center. Pleased to have the relatively new Executive Director, David Hogrefe, and David is to my right here. David, welcome.
Thank you.
Exciting time for you here, right?
It's really exciting
Really
here.
exciting.
Yeah.
First Christmas, and we'll talk about all that. And then to his right, my far right, George Johnson. Just in the last couple of weeks, George, who's from Logan, they have an exhibition down there of presidential Christmas trees. We'll talk about that. That's a very small niche in the world. Christmas trees on the 8 Ohio, is that what it is, the 8 Ohio
Yes.
presidents? Yeah. I even remember that from my Ohio history days. I was like, see, we have eight presidents. So how about that? But David Hogrefe is the executive director. 5-6 months on the job here. How's it going? You're still here?
I'm still
That's
here.
good?
It's pretty amazing, actually. Yeah, there's a lot going on. Yeah, we have a great heritage to kind of carry forth. Next year will be our 20th year of the Decorative Arts Center in Ohio. So I'm trying to carry on the legacy of Elizabeth Brown, the recent executive director, and we have some great exhibits planned for 2020. Right now we're in the midst of the Ohio Presidents, Surprising Legacies, where you'll learn all about the 8 presidents from Ohio. It's one of the first times an exhibit has been pulled together from all of our 8 presidents from Ohio, where they're all together. So you can view those in the main gallery space at the house. And then to coincide with that, we've taken the main floor collection and basically decorated. George has come in with his wife, Jean, and we have a tree for every president, both on the main floor and then downstairs in the lower gallery. So we're filled with Christmas right now, so we call it Christmas with the Ohio Presidents.
Well, it's certainly a perfect time for that. And George, we'll ask you about this. So we have the 8 trees decorated, and I gather you did a great deal of research to find out time-sensitive, time-accurate trees that they had then. These are what you display here?
Right.
How did you just come up with this idea?
Only 3 of the Ohio presidents that we have a record of had a tree in the White House.
They weren't done earlier.
Maybe they did and maybe they didn't, but we have no record of it.
And that's what's important. You can't prove that.
Key. So,
Sure.
and the best described tree is the Benjamin Harrison tree. So the Benjamin Harrison tree is decorated the same way that the newspaper reports of the time period, say this is the president's tree and this is how it was decorated. The others, we had to rely on other sources, but they're period sources. This is how a tree was decorated in 1869. This is how a tree was decorated in 1841. And so we've used those sources to recreate trees from that same time frame. So they were the type of tree that would be found in the White House under each of those 8 presidents.
Speaking with George Johnson here from Logan about this, and is this the first time you've had a display on these trees, or have you had them before somewhere and now it's just moved to here?
We've done, my wife and I have done Decorative Arts Center since 2002.
Okay.
The first big display that we did there, actually this bank sponsored. And so the planning for this year, we started in January. I started with Elizabeth and started planning, and it's based on what's upstairs in the upper gallery. And so I've had that 6 months to think about how we're going to do it. So this is a new display with lots of early stuff. I mean, we go from 1840 to 1920 with the Ohio presidents. So those trees are from those time periods.
So David, this is what a great tie-in to an already wonderful display that you have here. I know it's been worked on, like he says, Elizabeth, your predecessor, was here working on that, so you were able to just utilize that. But how nice these two things just kind of come together for this.
It's pretty amazing, and the fact that the Reese Peters house was built in 1835, it really does come to life, because you look at the history that's right here and in Lancaster, and the fact that many of these presidents their terms, 1840 all the way through the 1920s, the history that you see and that you understand. And as you gain an insight into what Ohio Republicanism was really like and why were we electing all of these presidents from Ohio, and it really had to do with, we were the Silicon Valley during those years, really, of the country. Great innovation happening. We were on the frontier. People had a spirit of kind of a bit of adventure, but really working to figure things out and solve, issues and problems. We were very pragmatic Ohioans at that time. So the whole Ohio President's, exhibit sort of celebrates that spirit, as well as looks at the importance of many of the first ladies and the impact that they had on the lives of the presidents, the legislation that was happening, the social justice issues that we were struggling with at the time. Because while things have changed, a lot has not changed. Kind of, we were talking about history and the importance of really celebrating, and how that's expressed through the art.
And you're talking about what an important part Ohio played on this. 8 presidents from one state. I doubt it. I wouldn't think. Now, I'm not the expert on this. I remember there were 8 presidents. Perhaps my knowledge stops there.
You're right.
But I'm not sure there is another state that would have that many presidents.
Actually, Virginia claims 8 also. I think.
A colony comes in.
We
and
fight,
beats us
right?
on
Well,
this.
we fight about William Henry Harrison because he technically was born in Virginia, but he served in Ohio legislature.
And
so
I do
we
remember
claim
a thing
them
where
also.
there was a time they wanted William Sherman. There was a groundswell. It didn't come about. I think he
Right.
didn't want it, but there was a groundswell because he was coming off, like Eisenhower, coming off a big military run, and they wanted him. So it probably came close to 9.
Right. And Garfield was actually elected because at the convention he was actually speaking on behalf of John Sherman. He wasn't really running for president, and because John Sherman was a distant third, the top 2 guys, and I forget their names, at that political convention, the votes cast each other out, and they liked the way James Garfield spoke. He was a great orator, and so they nominated him, I think, on the 34th poll through the convention. And then he
34th
went on
poll.
to win the presidency. So.
If that had been on TV, we'd still be watching that. Man. That would be a long
They were all in
process.
Chicago,
You'd be
yeah.
seeing wigs and
Yeah.
talking with David Hogrefe, who is the executive director of the Decorative Arts Center, just up the road, 100 yards from us right here, and George Johnson from Logan, who, along with the president's display they have there, George has come up with this Christmas tree display of the president. And is this something that kind of came to your mind, that you knew that the Arts Council or that the Decorative Arts Center was going to have this display, and you thought this would be a perfect fit with that?
Yes. Like Elizabeth and I started talking about, they knew that this was the display that was going to be up, the Ohio presidents, in December. What can you do? And so we started working through, and we decided that we would do a tree for each president, and that gave me enough time to do the research and gather the materials that was necessary to put together those 8 trees for those time periods.
And now, the materials that you gather, where did you come across what you would consider either reproductions or a real material from that time?
Most of it is real material.
Okay.
I've been collecting antique Christmas for 50 years, so the vast
So
majority
some
of it
from
was
the George
already
Johnson collection.
in
Okay.
the collection. But you're always looking for interesting pieces.
Sure. And there are
that will
pieces
add
out
to
there
it.
you still find, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'll give you a chance to talk on this. What a great tie-in. Your own personal Christmas tree display came with the one that you started with Elizabeth, now with David here as the executive director. It's just the perfect marriage of 2 things that just fit so well together. Yeah, I bet you're very excited about this.
Yeah, we're just really grateful because it does make the house completely alive, right? From the lower level gallery to the main floor collection, and then to the upper galleries where we have.
Now, don't we also have a 15-foot Christmas tree? Is it in the rising room?
In the rising room, very
rising
good.
room.
East Lake, the rising room. That's the Taft tree.
No, that's the Harding tree.
The Harding tree, right?
And how is it
1920s,
decorated? The
tree.
Harding, is that the one?
From the 1920s.
Okay.
So it's decorated with figural glass ornaments from the 1920s. That was the big thing in the 1920s. There was a shift in the way we decorated trees, and glass became the preeminent Christmas decoration at that time period. It's also electrically lit.
Was that be one of the first ones?
No, 1895 would be the first White House tree, but it wasn't an Ohio president.
Sure.
That was, electrically lit.
Because there was a time when there were no trees in the White House.
That
It
is
became
correct.
an issue, and then, of course, from here on.
That is correct.
Yeah. So as you were doing your homework, and certainly a lot done online, and along as your collection here, anything strike you as just a wow moment when you were doing all this?
I think it was candy, innocently enough. We did a lot of research on making sure that the candies and the cookies matched up with the right time period.
That's
you just don't want to throw any candy out
Sure.
there.
And I have a Clark bar sitting out there. That's not going to work.
No, the Clark bar won't. But jelly beans. If you had asked me a year ago when were jelly beans first used as candies at Christmas time, take a guess.
We might guess the Bushes, but I'm going to guess that isn't it.
That's not it.
So it goes back
1860s. So-
Lincoln time
Yeah.
period.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
So
Grant.
President Grant.
Okay.
Grant. So
Really?
that was a surprise to me. The other surprise in the same vein was animal crackers. Animal crackers been around for a long, long
Sure.
time. How long? 1871.
Really?
So there's an animal cracker box, an old animal cracker box on the Grant tree also. So
Well,
both of those were
George
candies,
Johnson
cookies.
is a gentleman from Logan who has kind of put this tree display together there, and to tie in with the Ohio President's display that they have at the Decorative Arts Center, and that's going on through December 29th.
Through the
Is that
29th
correct?
through the end of the year.
So we've got the end of the year planned out. Where do we go from there? Because as George indicated, he started this a long time ago, and I'm sure you've got displays figured out months ahead. Where do we head in January?
Yeah, we are looking ahead. Actually, we're now planning the tail end of 2021. So next year,
Wow.
we open with Barbara Sherman, who was the first female political cartoonist on staff at the New Yorker magazine.
Okay.
Very, very important person and in the cartooning world. So the Billy Ireland Cartoon Museum is at Ohio State University, and it is the world's largest cartoon museum. Right here, in central Ohio. And there's a great curator there who is Christine McGurk, and she's curated this show for us that will open at the end of January and run for about 4 months. And it's Barbara Sherman, her life and work, Tell Me a Story Where the Bad Girl Wins. So we're going to have a lot of fun with that because she's a pretty amazing woman. From there we move into the summertime, and as it's our 20th year, we're going to have 18 contemporary Ohio artists, and that's being curated now. We're pulling that group together. So we'll see a lot of activity around the Decorative Arts Center during the festival, but pretty much all summer with a lot of these artists teaching classes, doing some speaker series, talking about their art, their work, and demonstrating it. And a lot of that artwork will be for sale also, which is really exciting. And then toward the tail end of the year, next year at this time, we'll have the Russians in town. So we have the Russian decorative arts from the Tsars to the USSR.
Wow.
So
Very
that will be
exciting.
fascinating. So we've got to talk in January about
We'll see
what
what
trees
George
will
can
come
get
to life
plugged in
there.
for
But
that.
I
For
think
the Russian time
there's
period.
some stunningly beautiful art that's come out of Russia.
Our guests have been David Hogrefe, who is the executive director of the Decorative Arts Center, George Johnson from Logan, who has the tree display with the presidents right now, and this is all going on, the presidential display, the 8 Ohio presidents, and the tree display going on through December 29th, just up the hill here. One of the great places in Lancaster is the Decorative Arts Center of Ohio. Is it 20 years we're celebrating?
20 years.
20
We'll
years.
celebrate in September of 2020.
Amazing. So get up there and see this if you want to go someplace very cool to see something this time of year. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
you.
It's
Thanks very
been a
much.
real treat. Good luck, and we'll look forward to a year from now seeing what you pull out of the hat now. It's going to be very exciting.
We'll get started now.
It's going to be very
Yeah.
exciting. Thank you for
Great.
joining us on Fairfield Today. Merry Christmas.
Interface Video presents Fairfield Today. Brought to you by Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, Fairhope Hospice and Palliative Care, the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities, and the Frankie Smith Funeral Home.